A serpent's jaw clamps down on living wood. Bark splinters, sap bleeds into darkness, and somewhere above, 4 deer tear at leaves that will never grow back. This is not the end of the world. This is how the world has always been. Most people carry a picture of Norse mythology that looks suspiciously like a layer cake. Heaven on top, earth in the middle, hell at the bottom, clean. Simple. Wrong. That image owes more to medieval Christian scribes than to anything the Norse actually believed. The real cosmos they envisioned was stranger, messier, and far more alive than any vertical stack could ever capture. And the key to understanding it is a single, enormous ash tree that holds 9 entire worlds in its roots and branches, all while being eaten alive from within. But to understand how we got here, we need to shatter something first. That 3-tier model, the one you've seen in every textbook and every fantasy game, it doesn't appear anywhere in the original Norse sources. Not once. Snorri Sturluson, the 13th century Icelandic scholar who compiled the Prose Edda, our most detailed guide to Norse cosmology, lists 9 realms across 9 successive passages in his Gylfaginning. He never stacks them. He never describes a ladder. He never implies that Asgard sits above Midgard the way a penthouse sits above a lobby. The realms don't go up and down. They radiate outward, orbiting a central axis like planets around a sun, except the sun is alive and it's bleeding. That axis is Yggdrasil, and everything begins here. Yggdrasil is not a metaphor for a tree. It is the tree, a cosmic ash so vast that its branches scrape the edges of reality and its roots plunge into 3 separate wells, each one a source of something fundamental. The first root reaches Urda's well, where the Norns, 3 goddesses of fate named Urda, Verdandi, and Skuld, sit and carve destiny into living wood. This is where the gods hold court. The second root stretches to Mimir's well, a spring of wisdom hidden among the giants, so precious that Odin himself sacrificed an eye just to drink from it. The third root sinks into Hvergelmir, a roaring cauldron at the edge of the underworld, feeding 26 rivers that pour outward into the void. 3 roots, 3 wells, each one a different kind of power, fate, wisdom, and raw elemental force. And clinging to this structure, 9 worlds. The obvious assumption is that these worlds are neatly separated, each one sealed in its own bubble. That is not what the sources describe. Asgard, home of the Aesir gods, sits along one of Yggdrasil's upper branches. Vanaheim, where the rival Vanir gods dwell, occupies its own region of the canopy. Alfheim belongs to the light elves, beings of artistry and subtle magic. Down among the roots and lower branches, Svartalfheim, sometimes called Nidavellir, houses the dwarves in their molten forges. Jotunheim sprawls outward in jagged chaos, a realm of frost and fire where the giants plot and scheme. Muspelheim burns with primordial flame. Niflheim drifts in eternal ice and mist. And Helheim, ruled by the goddess Hel, receives the dead who did not fall in battle. Between them all lies Midgard, the human world, connected to Asgard by a single shimmering bridge. That bridge is Bifrost. You've seen it, the rainbow. But here is where most retellings stop, and where the real picture gets far more interesting. Bifrost is not the only highway between worlds. It is the most visible one, yes, the one reserved for gods and chosen heroes, guarded by Heimdall with his all-seeing eyes. But the Norse cosmos has at least 2 other networks running beneath the surface. Dwarves and giants travel through root corridors, subterranean passages that wind along Yggdrasil's veins like tunnels carved into a living spine. At least 5 medieval sagas describe Jötnar using these hidden root roads to move between realms unseen. And then there are the wells themselves, which function as portal nodes, aquatic gateways where spirits and beings of power can cross from one domain to another. 3 networks, not one. The rainbow is the front door. The roots are the back alleys, and the wells are trapdoors that open into places you were never meant to go. Now picture the beings who actually use these roads. Thor is the most famous realm walker. His giant hunting expeditions to Jotunheim span 3 poems in the Poetic Edda alone: the Himmelskvidda, the Thrymskvidda, and sections of the Harbardsfjord. He wades through churning rivers, crosses boundaries that should be impassable, and picks fights with beings that make him look small. But Thor always takes the obvious route. He walks. He smashes. Odin is different. Odin does not travel between worlds so much as he trades pieces of himself for access. His most famous journey is not a journey at all. He hangs himself from Yggdrasil's branches for 9 nights, wounded by his own spear, refusing food and water, dangling between life and death until the runes reveal themselves to him. Grimnismal stanza 19 captures this moment. He does not conquer the tree, he surrenders to it, and the tree, in return, opens its secrets. Then there is Loki. Loki does not ask permission. He slips between realms the way smoke slips through cracks. Across at least 5 stanzas of Lokasenna, he moves from Asgard to Helheim and back, using root tunnels and well portals, shape-shifting as needed. Sometimes a salmon, sometimes a fly, sometimes a woman. Where Thor forces his way through and Odin bargains for passage, Loki simply finds the gaps. And every cosmos has gaps, but none of these travelers, not even the gods, can fix what is wrong with the tree itself. This is the detail that changes everything about Norse cosmology, the one most retellings gloss over because it undermines the idea of a stable universe waiting for its dramatic end. Yggdrasil is not intact. It has never been intact. From the moment it sprouted, decay was already at work. At the base of the lowest root coils Nidhöggr, a dragon or perhaps a serpent, depending on which poem you read. Nidhöggr is named 8 times across the Poetic Edda. In Völuspá, stanzas 42 through 44 describe it gnawing at the root, spitting venom, feeding on the corpses of the dishonored dead. This is not a creature that arrives at Ragnarok. It is there from the beginning. It chews. The tree endures. It chews more. The tree weakens. This is an eternal process, not a catastrophic event. And above, where the branches spread into canopy, 4 stags graze on Yggdrasil's tender leaves and bark. Grimnismal stanza 42 names them: Dain, Dvalin, Duneyr, and Durathror. Every bite strips away something the tree cannot easily replace. Leaves fall, bark peels, new growth struggles against constant consumption. The cosmos is not a fortress waiting for a siege. It is a living organism being devoured from both ends simultaneously. This changes the meaning of everything else. If the tree is always dying, then the realms it supports are always precarious. The bridges can crack, the root roads can collapse, the wells can run dry. Every myth about gods traveling between worlds carries an unspoken tension. The road might not be there next time. The system works, but only barely, and only for now. Some scholars push back on this reading. They argue that Norse cosmology was never meant as a literal map. It was poetry. It was ritual theater, a mnemonic device for skalds who needed to remember vast genealogies and mythic cycles. The Eddas, after all, were compiled centuries after pagan practice had faded, filtered through Christian scribes who may have reshaped what they found. A 2017 survey of 45 Norse specialists found that 68% favor a primarily metaphorical reading. Only 32% support even a partial literal interpretation. And yet, the 2020 excavation at Gamla Uppsala uncovered 12 post holes arranged in a perfect circle, interpreted by archaeologists as supports for a central sacred pillar. A pillar that may have represented Yggdrasil itself, standing at the heart of a ritual space, where seasonal ceremonies reenacted the cosmic order. 27 Viking Age runestones across Sweden and Norway depict a central tree flanked by beasts, the same composition described in the Eddas. 5 Danish ring forts, Trelleborg, Aggersborg, Fyrkat, Nonnebakken, and Borgring, display timber layouts that resemble stylized branches when viewed from above. Whether or not every Norse farmer believed in 9 literal worlds, somebody was building physical echoes of this cosmic tree into the landscape. Somebody thought the structure mattered enough to carve it in stone and raise it in timber. There is another layer worth considering. The number 9 itself is not arbitrary. It appears with suspicious frequency across Norse ritual practice. Odin hangs for 9 nights. Heimdall is born of 9 mothers, 9 giantesses detailed in Gylfaginning section 27. Runic charms catalogued by scholars repeatedly invoke 9 as an organizing principle. 9 is not just a count. It is an architecture, a sacred geometry that structures the cosmos the way a skeleton structures a body. And this architecture has echoes far beyond Scandinavia. The Katha Upanishad, composed in India around the 4th century BCE, describes 2 Ashvatha trees, one immortal, one mortal, a dual tree motif that mirrors Yggdrasil's tension between eternal structure and constant decay. 3 post-classic Mayan codices illustrate the Seba world tree bridging underworld, earth, and sky. Mesopotamian ziggurats at Ur and Babylon functioned as stepped axis mundi, physical structures designed to link earth and heaven. Whether these traditions share a common ancestor deep in Indo-European prehistory, or whether they represent independent inventions of the same intuition that the universe needs a spine, a central column to hold everything together, remains one of comparative mythology's most heated debates. But here is what none of those parallels capture. None of them build destruction into the architecture the way Norse cosmology does. The saber tree stands. The ziggurats endure. Yggdrasil is being eaten. That is not a flaw in the myth. That is the myth. The Norse looked at the universe and saw something modern ecologists would recognize instantly: a system in which growth and decay are not opposites, but partners. The tree feeds the deer weaken the tree, the serpent gnaws the root channels the water. Everything is connected, and everything is consuming everything else, and somehow the whole structure holds until it doesn't. If this cosmic web of realms, roots, and ruin pulled you in, there is an entire mythology still waiting to be explored. Subscribe, because the next story goes deeper into the beings who inhabit these worlds, and their motives are far more complicated than any simple tale of good against evil. A serpent gnaws, leaves fall, 9 worlds tremble on a dying tree, and that tree is still standing.